Welcome to the Business Development Podcast, brought to you by the Global Business Development Association, delivering the strategies and tactics to boost your career and corporate growth.
Hello, BD pros, and welcome to the Global Business Development Association's podcast called What is Business Development? Hey, you have to write proposals a lot as a business developer. How many times have you been in the proposal phases and you've arrived at your first or second draft, sometimes your third draft, and you realize, oh boy, this is just a bunch of junk. And you followed a waterfall process where you doled out a bunch of writing assignments to subject matter experts that are probably engineers, maybe working full time on direct billable work for their clients. They don't have time. They don't have the interest in writing. And you assemble all of the pieces, all of the drafts, and you get to your first complete draft and you realize, wow, this is a bunch of junk. We have to put Humpty Dumpty back together. What do we do? Well, folks, there's a better way to do that. And we're going to jump into it in this podcast with a fantastic interview with a really interesting book author and his new book. And we're going to jump right into that. But before we do, hey, let's talk about the book that we all love as business developers called The Business Development Body of Knowledge. If you want to become a certified business development professional with the GBDA certifications, then get a copy of the BD BOK, the Business Development Body of Knowledge. And that teaches you the entire customer journey and the key tactics and processes, the operations and the strategies of business development to be a success in our profession. And if you're listening, watching, give us a like, drop a comment. It gives me the dopamine rush to continue doing these things for you and bringing wonderful authors and books to your attention. Today, we're going to be talking about the book called Agile Business Development. Now, this is a great book. I've been reading it. I really like it. It's an easy read. It's a quick read, and it's broken down in very concise terms to 43 Agile business development practices. And these are simple techniques with profound impacts for BD, capture, proposals, and sales practitioners at all levels. You'll identify with the stories and find empowerment in the approach that you find in the book. And the book author, well, let's welcome him to the show. And he is Todd Baylor. And Todd helps companies grow in developing concise, visual, and compelling value propositions from marketing through formal proposals. He dives into bids and drives or supplements strategy, capture, customer engagement, and proposal development. And he's used his Agile BD tactics and techniques, the very same techniques you'll find in his book, to win $12 billion in contract awards. Wow. So let's welcome to the show our friend, Todd Baylor. Todd, welcome.
Hi, Tony. Great to be here.
Well, Todd, it's great to have you here. And I'd love to hear from you. How did you get into BD and why did you write the book?
Okay. I came into BD by coming up the software development ladder. I came out of school with computer science degrees, and I was a programmer, and I gradually managed teams of programmers and large programs of application developers. And then I had to recompete these contracts and win them. So I slid over towards what I now consider to be the hardest part of the business, growing the business. And so I worked with many growth professionals, salespeople, capture people, proposal managers. And I started to see an opportunity to apply some of the agile concepts that came out of the software development world to the business development, the proposal development world. And that's when I sort of decided to start gathering my ideas and put them into a book. And that's the book that you described.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic book. Again, folks, I'm putting it up on the screen. For those just listening, it's called Agile Business Development, a Practitioner's Guide to Compelling Value Proposition. And you can get it on Amazon. It's available in Kindle as well. You can get it also in paperback, currently listed at about $16 for you there, or free with your Kindle Unlimited. I've been reading it in Kindle and I'm really enjoying it. So Todd, let's jump into your top 3 tactics or takeaways from your book. What's number 1?
Okay, well, I'll start with sort of turning the business development paradigm on its side from one that is often presented as phases that you go through: identify, qualify, et cetera, et cetera. And instead of that, that's very similar to the software phases of get your requirements right, get your architecture right, get your design right, get your coding right, testing, da da da. And what we changed in the software world was to say, instead of focusing on marching through these phases and checklists of activities associated with each phase, how about we instead focus on working software and getting your working software in front of your customers and letting them tell you what they like and what they don't like, and giving them another version in a week, and a week after that, and a week after that. I came to realize that in the business development world, the analog of working software is your value proposition. And you can deliver your value proposition to customers from the very beginning of the business development lifecycle, all the way through your detailed proposals and orals, or however else you're presenting. At the top, in order to do that, you need to realize that your value proposition occurs at many levels of abstraction, many levels of decomposition. And I'll just talk about the top levels the top levels of the pyramid. So I start with a tagline, and people don't realize it, but you can actually present the complete value of a solution in a phrase if you distill to the highest levels of that value proposition. And this phrase may be something that you hear, on a $6 billion bid recently for the largest contact center in the federal government. We distilled our value proposition down to the agency's citizen satisfaction scores would go up every year. And that may not sound earth-shattering, but these were the numbers that the secretary would take in front of Congress. These were the numbers that they used to justify their budgets. And most importantly, these were the numbers that the agency would use to get promotions and would use to, further their own careers. So this got their interest in a single phrase. I at the next level of the value proposition, I decompose it into maybe 3 phrases. And the way I position them is, would you like these achievements? So if you can think of things that they would like to achieve, this has nothing to do with my company. This has to do with the readers of the proposal or the value proposition. Would you like to achieve these 3 things? And those I call win themes. And I know that that's a term that's overloaded in our industry and comes with many preconceived notions, but they really are just phrases that you want to introduce early in the business development process, then maybe early in your presentations, then maybe on the front page of your proposal or on the front page of your orals deck. And I treat that as a second level of decomposition. I drop down into developing your executive summary, early on in the business development process, and have a considerate way of presenting your value proposition at the level of an executive summary. That starts with, we hear you. It doesn't start with, we're a great company. It doesn't start with, you love our company. It starts with, we hear you. And it's really, we've done our best to hear you. And then we have a solution for what we think you're trying to achieve. And that solution has benefits. And you should trust us because we've done that solution in other places. So it's just a sort of turning the paradigm of business development on its side and focusing your efforts around value proposition as opposed to phase and activity completion.
Okay, great. So tactic number 1 is nail that tagline and make sure you're rolling in your value proposition, not only into the tagline, but into your win themes. So let's pick that apart a little bit. The tagline. Where do you put the tagline? Is it just on the cover page of your proposal? Is it on the first sentence, on page one? Where do you put it?
So I put it on every page of the proposal. I put it up in the header because if it's something that you believe in and something that, you ideally tested, maybe through conversations with the customer, it is something that they can get behind. This is really their tagline, not my tagline. This whole solution is their solution, not my solution. So ideally, I'm continuously reminding them of something that they would be proud of, a future that they would be proud of.
Yeah, and I like what you said too. You're pulling and doing research on what the leadership of your prospect is saying, and whether they're saying that in public records. It could be in testimony. It could be on LinkedIn. It could be in press releases. It could be in their annual reports, right? I mean, these are their success criteria. And so when they see those success criteria in your tagline, it says, "Hey, we understand you guys. I mean, we know what your mission is." So right then, it establishes the primary foundation for trust. You are aligned in purpose, right? Trust it's neuroscience. We write about it in the BD book, and every business developer who's read it knows it. Trust is simple neuroscience. It's purpose plus empathy plus truth. You are starting off right in the beginning going, "Hey, look, we get you. You're trying to get from point A to point B. We will get you to point B." Okay, right?
And what's nice about that is as soon as you start that way, you differentiate yourself from most companies that feel obligated to say, "We are wonderful. You want X, we are great at delivering X. We're the market leader at delivering X." And it takes
And
a
nobody
while, but
cares.
nobody cares. Nobody cares that you're a market leader or an
Thank you.
industry leader.
Yeah,
They
thank you
they
for
have their own fish to fry.
right. Yeah, thank you for submitting your very narcissistic bid.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's what is there anything in here about me, the customer, the prospect? I mean, what's going on here?
Right.
Yeah, and well, and the other thing too is it submits what I call sniffing salts. I've been on the receiving end of reviewing bids and a number of bids. And, as a reviewer, by the time you get to like the third one, your eyes are starting to roll in the back of your head every time you see them start off with, "We are proud to submit this bid with blah, blah, blah." And
Oh,
it's like, come on, you're killing me. I'm trying to stay awake here.
you are
Give me
killing
something
me.
to work with.
Yeah.
And I would always say, administer those sniffing salts right up front. Hit them with the tagline that says, "Look, I get your purpose." And then those win themes that nail their pain points, right? Like, I, I know you want to get from point A to point B. I tell you what, here are 3 landmines along the way. And we know these are big risks for you. And tell you what, we're the only guys that can take care of it. Wow. Okay. I'm in. Tell me more, right?
Yeah, and it really shows also that you've done your homework, that you're not just coming with your standard boilerplate solution to them, that you recognize that what is most important is their need and their situation. And then we'll get to whether our solution or how our solution might address your situation.
Yeah. Okay, great. So let's jump into number 2 then. What's number 2, Todd?
All right, so I mentioned that you can treat executive summaries as in the way that software teams, can produce a prototype or an early version of the delivered product and actually give it to customers. You can produce an executive summary before an RFP even drops and use that as an MVP, a minimally viable proposal that you can get incredibly good feedback from your executives, from your consultants. You can't run it by your customers, but you can treat this as a minimally viable proposal and get all the benefits of running it through a review cycle, again, before an RFP even drops.
Wow, I like that. Not every bid requires an executive summary. Sometimes the procurement official will say, yes, you can provide an executive summary, but it won't be reviewed. It may not be reviewed. That's fine. But I like what you're saying here about using the executive summary, even pre-proposal, to get everybody on the same sheet of music, I think, because in that executive summary, you should have your win themes, your ghosting themes, your tagline, or at least your draft tagline, and you're getting everybody strategically on the same sheet of music. And maybe in that executive summary, you're also identifying some of the gaps where, maybe it's just an annotation or whatnot, where you're letting leadership know, look, to win this, we need to do X, Y, and Z. We could do X really well. We could do Z really well. Here are our win themes. Here are our ghosting themes. And by ghosting themes, folks, if you haven't heard that term before, these are the themes where you're specifically addressing the weaknesses of your competitors. And so you're exploiting those weaknesses by revealing those weaknesses to the prospect in your proposal, to then be viewed in a more positive light. And there are ways to subtly present ghosting themes without being obnoxious about it. And but I like this idea, Todd, of the executive summary, really getting everybody on the same sheet of music, especially even the writing team, anybody that may be
Sure.
involved in reviewing. And I think it's probably great feedback too for leadership to say, oh, well, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to, I like A, B, and C, but D, I don't think we want to, we want to bid that, right?
Yeah. And two notes. Executive summaries are such a preferred format for an executive to actually do a review of your proposal, as opposed to some raggedy pink team, version of your document, that it's really more wasting their time. Where I guarantee you will get their engagement if you say, here's our concise value proposition presented in 3 pages, that you, by the way, don't have to waste a couple hours reviewing, because you can see how we distilled this down to the most important 3 pages. And I'll also say, I use the term executive summary, but often, like you said, the executive summary is not scored in a proposal. But so I can, this may be the introduction to your technical approach, or slide into your management approach, or even into your pricing or your cover letter, or other places that will get scored.
Yeah, I like what you said too about giving it to the executive so that they can understand where you're going with your bid process, your solutioning, and doing that pre-proposal, probably even during the proposal, to kind of show, hey, pre-proposal, we said X, Y, and Z. In the proposal phase, we fine-tuned a couple of things. This is what's changed, and we've summarized that for you. And quite honestly, I also like it because then that it dissuades them from wanting to participate in your draft review sessions, where typically I found that executives are not really good about providing great feedback on your bid, simply because they probably don't have direct experience with the customer or the prospect. They don't have a lot of deep technical knowledge. And by the time they get to page 3, they're just nitpicking spell check and grammar check. And it's
Yeah,
like,
but
okay,
they do
great.
have
Thanks, boss.
opinions. That you can be sure of. They have opinions, and often their opinions are at the strategic level. And when you can get their opinions early enough, you can make strategic course corrections, where often if you're further down the road, in a red team or similar, you can't make the strategic structural course corrections to your value proposition the way you can if you get their feedback early.
Okay, great. So let's talk about tactic number 3.
I think we used up my 3 that I had ready. So I will just
Well,
say,
I tell you what, let's do this, Todd. Let's walk through the Agile BD process. Can we kind of walk through that as kind of it's not necessarily a tactic, but it's a framework that I think everybody really needs to understand.
yeah. So I'll say, the high level points of Agile BD is start from the beginning of focusing on your value proposition. Your initial interactions with your customers should be testing these taglines, maybe testing your win themes. When you finally get meetings with your customer, you want to present them not with your corporate capabilities, but your first attempts at solutioning their issue. I like to say that should be done on a single page. on a single page visual. As you meet and discuss those sorts of things, if you're not presenting your capabilities to them, which is going to get them to zone out, because again, they don't care what your company capabilities are. They do care about your attempt to solve their problem, and that will get them engaged. And now all of a sudden you are using the agile methods, the agile paradigm to your benefit, continuous delivery and feedback from your customers about their solution. So it's more along the lines of, don't focus on analysis and planning to plan and gate reviews and things like that. You can still do all those things, but put your primary emphasis on your value delivery to your customer, and curate that, and blow that out into further levels of detail. And that's a better paradigm to interact with customers during the BD process.
Yeah. And, as you talk through that, I thought, boy, you could probably use that executive summary and shop that with your prospect. Show them a draft.
If
And
they're open to it, you
if,
absolutely can.
right, because you're already starting to pitch the solution and whatnot. And if they give you feedback on, well, we didn't like this, or you missed something, that's great. You could probably do that during the request for information phase, the RFI phase even.
It absolutely works that way.
Yeah. Now, okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper then in the agile process. And as I started the show, folks, we talked about the more linear waterfall methodology, where you have multiple draft reviews. Say after week one of writing, it's pens down. Everybody submits their draft inputs. Everybody sits around a table and admires it. Maybe you have folks that are reviewing it. And what you're doing as the capture manager, the business developer, whatever role you're in, you're looking at it and saying, okay, where are my gaps still? Do we have our win themes included? Do we have our ghosting themes included? Then you get to draft review number 2, after you tell all those writers, hey, you missed this win theme, you missed that ghosting theme. You get to draft number 2, and this is what I call the Humpty Dumpty phase, where you realize it's still not coming together. We have different voices. We have so many win themes that are missing, ghosting themes that are missing. We're missing complete sections of the solution. It's falling apart. And now we're in crisis mode. We've already wasted 2 weeks just admiring something that's not coming together. It's coming unglued by week number 2, and now we're in crisis mode. Versus the agile methodology, which uses the agile software development methodologies, which is, let's start with the content we've already written, like the executive summary. Let's use that. Let's use content we've used in previous proposals, because it's directly speaking to the solutions that we want to present. Great. Now we've completed probably 45, 50% of the proposal effort. And now with artificial intelligence tools, you could do that very quickly. And now what you're focused on is, where are the gaps? Where do we have technical solution gaps? In the win themes, we said we were going to do X, Y, Z. Where's our answer to that? In the ghosting themes, we identified weaknesses of the competition of ABC. Where are we showing that we beat them in those regards? And now you're looking at gaps. And so I always like to use kind of a green stoplight chart: green, yellow, red. All right, the customer said they wanted this section. They want us to talk about this. Are we green, yellow, red? Green means we've got the win theme, we got the ghosting theme, we've got a great solution. Good. Done. No, we don't need to go back to that section again. Let's keep focusing, right? So this is, I know in your book, you talk through this in detail. I just wanted to give folks an overall summary, but did I kind of express everything properly,
one of the
Todd?
important points that you brought up is, often the standard process produces a document that goes through pink review, red review, etc. When parts of that document could be lifted from a previously, well done proposal, and the section is relatively in good shape. You don't need to waste everyone's time reviewing a document component that's in good shape. Likewise, if there's a critical new solution aspect of this proposal that is in a certain section, that section may need to get multiple pink team reviews, where other sections may not need to have any reviews. And you want to be flexible that way, not just run the whole document through, oh, time for pens down, time to get everything in front of the reviewers, time to get their feedback, time to just get through red team because red team is scheduled for Thursday, kind of thing. And it's better to be more flexible with that whole review, feedback, editing process.
Yeah, well, and I'm a big fan of the Agile BD methodology. I've used it myself, and I found that typically I would cut about 25% in time versus waterfall methodology. And so that also translated into big savings for my clients. And, it obviously helped you out quite a bit, winning about $12 billion in big wins. So, folks, if you want to have big wins, then consider the Agile BD methodology in Todd's book. And again, the name of the book is Agile Business Development, a practitioner's guide to compelling value proposition. And when you read that book, key in on some of the key takeaways that we talked about today. Number one, tagline. Get your tagline nailed down early and focus it on the customer. It's about them. It's about their purpose. Get them from point A to B. Align with them. That starts building trust. The second takeaway is get your executive summary done, not at proposal phase. Get it done early. Get it in front of your leadership. Make sure they agree with where you're going. Get it in front of your customer, your prospect. Get their feedback. Understand what's missing, what needs to be added, what needs to be fine-tuned. You're rolling right into the proposal phase, well armed with all of the information you need to succeed. And then when you're in the proposal phase, use the Agile methodology. Software developers have been doing it for decades now, and it works great. You can save a lot. And odds are your P-win may go up as well. All right. So use those methodologies that will increase efficiency, increase your effectiveness. And if you're interested and you want to learn more, get a copy of Todd's book. Again, it's available on Amazon. And Todd, how can folks follow your work, get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. That seems to be the social media for business at, just my name, Todd Baylor. My website is agilebd.com. Either of those will get you to me. And I would love to interact with other people who share the same passion for this stuff.
Yeah, well, no matter where you are in the world, and you can notice if you're watching this, Todd Baylor has his hand-painted world map behind him. That took, I think, 6 months, he told me, to paint
2
that.
years.
2 years. And of course, we have the map behind us in the GBDA. No matter where in the world you are, reach out to Todd. He's a fantastic person. He's brilliant when it comes to this relatively new concept of Agile Business Development, and grab a copy of his book. Todd Baylor, thank you so much for everything you do to advance the art, science, and ethics of business development. And thank you for sharing your ideas with us today.
It has been my absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me and all the stuff you do to bring the community together.
Thank you for listening to the Business Development Podcast. Join our free community of corporate partners and business development professionals advancing the art, science, and ethics of the business development profession at gbdassociation.org.